Frank J. Avella with the Contending. Today, in our on-screen Legends series, we have a Golden Globe winning actress who has been gifting us outstanding performances since the mid-1960s and shows no signs of slowing down. She should have amassed a handful of Oscar nominations from this list of credits alone. Two for the Road, The Detective, The Sweet Ride, Bullet, Airport, Day for Night, Murder on the Orient Express, Who is Killing the Great Chefs of Europe, Rich and Famous, Under the Volcano, La Cérémonie, The Sleepy Time Gal, and most recently, Lauren and Rose. I am honored to welcome Jacqueline Bisset.
Very kind. Thank you.
You are most welcome. I spent the last week revisiting your films. It's given me such joy. The diversity of roles and how you always bring tremendous nuance, grace, intelligence to every project is beyond impressive. So I want to thank you.
Well, thank you.
Um, so before we do our career deep dive, I wanted to ask a basic question. When did you know you wanted to act? When did it bite?
Well, I was raised out of completely away from all this. So I didn't see films till I was about 15. And I went with my parents to see some French films and then some Italian films. And I was enthralled. I had no concept of what women could be like. I grew up in a semi-country and quite a protected life. I went to normal school and everything. And my interests were ballet, and I like classical music, and I like rhythm. I loved rhythm and drums. I love drums. Um, and I love reading. And I used to forget the names of books I read, which of course I never knew I would be an actress, and I would want to remember them, the names of the titles of the books. But I read a great deal, and I thought about the world of the imaginary quite a lot. I like dressing up with friends, and we do that a fair amount. But the idea of acting, it was so far apart and so separate, and there was nothing to pull me towards it. And but my mother gave me grains of things. She gave me grains of seeds of things, and there were a lot of books around. So gradually, I got into thinking about the arts. I was always interested in painting, not doing painting, but visual arts, and I had a good sense of what was good and what wasn't. I've always had quite a clear taste, which has actually served me quite well. I didn't believe in it much, but it did serve as a background. And I don't. When I saw Jean Moreau walking down the street in La Notte, and when I saw Anthony Quinn in La Strada, and all these films, and I don't know, there was just magic, complete magic, and the still moment of watching a face. And then there were the films of Bergman, how he photographed women, and of course that brought women very much into focus for me, which absolutely did not exist before that time. And and how he filmed them, and how he brought the skin tone onto the screen somehow through lighting. It was absolutely enthralling. You felt like you could touch people. And of course, they were doing interesting things. Not much action, very little action. I wasn't interested particularly in action. Um, and conversation. I just loved conversation. And I've always been, it's my totally my thing. Is hearing people talk about themselves or about other subjects, asking questions, finding out psychologically they are leaning, whatever. That's my most biggest passion. And of course, that takes you in a way into film, into intimate film, and into scripts like Lauren and Rose.
Yes, which we will absolutely discuss later. Your first few films, you got to work with Richard Lester, Roman Polanski, Stanley Donen. Not too shabby.
Yeah, but they weren't roles. They weren't roles. But I got to see good directors working, and I was completely enthralled. Enthralled. I mean, the first thing I did was Roman Polanski gave me a tiny part. He was actually looking for an unknown girl in cul-de-sac. Thank God I didn't get the part. I tested for him twice. And thank God he didn't give me the role, because I would not have been able to do it. And I would have blown any chances of having any kind of career. And Francois Doriac was absolutely extraordinary and, of course, very sophisticated. And I didn't know what that was. But he said to me, this was at a dinner. you are such an introvert, you might make a good actress. And I had just been told by my Latin teacher that I was such an extrovert that I might make a good actress. Well, imagine that position. How dare I think even the idea that I could in any way be involved in magic.
That's
But I,
incredible.
yeah, and it was a. And so actually now when I see talent in people, I tell them, I say, I think you have something you could be, and I keep quiet when I don't think there's any talent, but I do see, and I'm good at picking. I can see it, I can see it in other people.
Good for passing that along because, I don't think enough people in the industry do. I know Jane Fonda is one who's been very generous in that respect.
The word talent means weight, and that's an important word. To have talent, to have weight, and the word heavyweight, and that really is a lot of what you need to sustain on a film. You need to have presence. Call it whatever you want to call it, but people say she's got talent. She's got no talent. It's usually a lack of weight or something. It's all these infinitesimal details that add up to something.
Yeah. Well, and in terms of your first significant role, I would argue that it was the detective. Um, I
Yes.
think your scenes with Sinatra are wonderful.
Oh, thank you. He was very protective. I was glad to say because I was quite unhappy with the director. Was not very kind. Mr. Sinatra said, leave the kid alone. She's got good instincts, which has been an incredible backup for me at certain moments. Not that I requoted him, but I thought, wow, he told me that, and I know it's true. But if somebody doesn't see it, they don't see it. That's the way life is.
Well, I thought it was in a really incredible performance, and that movie gets a bad rap because it's called homophobic, and it's not. Actually, I think Sinatra's character is really accepting, and we're talking about 1968.
Mhm.
So yeah, I and then the sweet ride comes along. And it's honestly, it's another incredible performance. Golden Globe nomination for Most Promising Newcomer, and you said you weren't even aware
I'm
of the
completely
honor.
unaware. No, passed right over my head. Lots of things did passed over my head. Didn't know about them. Didn't have PR. Didn't know about it.
I want to ask you about Michael Sarrazin because that was your
Yes,
first of two films, and I always felt that Sarrazin never really got his due. He was such a good actor. They Shoot Horses, Peter Proud, Pursuit of Happiness, good performances, and I feel like he just never had that break that would have catapulted him.
he had the break, but then the studio messed it up. He was cast in Midnight, a Midnight Cowboy, the John Voight part.
Oh my
He
God.
went to New York. He said, "I'm going to New York to do a test," and off he went. When he came back, he said, "I got the part." And he said, "I have this terrible feeling that the studio is going to mess it up." I said, "Well, oh, you got the part, right?" And they wouldn't let him do it because it would cost him. They would have cost him. It would have cost them some money somehow that he if he'd done it and he didn't get it. Well, it was a terrible downer. It was an awful thing to live through. I really really felt sorry because he wanted that part so badly, and
I mean, he would have been amazing.
he would have, yeah.
Uh, your first blockbuster was Bullet. And I'm curious, after that film, that was your first film with Peter Yates, did the scripts start pouring in after that?
No, I don't think so. I
No.
don't remember anything pouring in. No, no, I was very preoccupied with my personal life. I really didn't get the whole thing about, what you're working towards because I was thinking about Jean Moreau and I knew it wasn't going to happen in America. I thought, well, I'll be go back to England around the corner, seeing, maybe I'll have a career like some Vanessa Redgrave or somebody, I don't know, somebody English. But I didn't expect to stay there. And of course, then I was involved with Michael for 7 years and that pulled me into staying there. And I, I just lived my life. I used to people used to say, to me, "Well, why aren't you married to him?" I said, "Well, I have no reason to be married. Why would I be married?" When they were supposed you should marry him and then you'll make money and then this and that and you should have this life. And I thought, well, he just had two children, but he had not married the mother. And I don't think he's going to marry me. And I didn't want to get married. And I wanted to very much to handle my personal life, and I needed very much to earn money and to have something that was mine. And we had our, issues, but he was a very interesting person and he was an intelligent person. people used to tell me, he's too intelligent to be an actor. I don't think it's quite, but he was also funny.
That's very, very interesting. You guys also you made a second film, which I can't find anywhere that I've been trying
It's,
to see. Believe in Me.
yes, we played amphetamine addicts, but at the time, the head of MGM, Jim Aubrey, decided that they were not, we were already shooting and we were almost finished. And he said, these movies are not working, not making money. We've got to switch Michael's drug from amphetamines to heroin. It's completely different behavior.
Yeah.
A very peculiar moment for him. I was the sort of supporting person in his life in all general, but I remember then they shipped us off to Fire Island, made us do some love scenes, walking around looking dreamy, and him suddenly having to look all sort of sleepy and low energy. And I thought, this is such a peculiar place. What a peculiar place to do that. I mean, it's exact opposite behavior. You're playing, on speed and weight heroin. So we got through that, and of course didn't do well. And there was a schmaltzy song. Lou Rawls sung some schmaltzy song over the top of it, and I thought, oh Christ, what a place this is. But we were very good in it.
I'm going to find it. I'm That's one of my many films that I need to find. Want to talk about Airport right now because honestly, Airport I think is a great film. In 9 Oscar nominations when it came out, it's considered the granddaddy of disaster films. I want to ask you two questions about Airport. I want you to working with Dean Martin, who I also feel was a very underrated actor. And you had great scenes with Helen Hayes. I want to
Oh,
know if you really slapped her.
oh, no, it's a silly story. Dean Martin was adorable with everybody. He was incredibly warm and friendly and funny, always funny, walking around with a bottle of apple juice, a glass of apple juice, pretending it was scotch. I used to go and sit in his caravan because I was trying to learn to cook. So I would watch the galloping gourmet in his caravan, try and get recipes together so I could go home and cook them for my friend Michael. And during that shoot, we were given a very strict lecture about all being on this plane together. It was going to be very hot and very tedious, and we was all concentrating. We must not drink alcohol at lunchtime. Well, that was like the key to the cabinet, for God's sake. I mean, they're telling people not to do something. So basically, everybody got up and went to the local Mexican restaurant, including me. My makeup man encouraged me to have a margarita. And then he encouraged me to have another one. Well, I didn't get to the second one, but I was so amused by this carry on. And then there was a scene came up with Helen Hayes. I know, oh my God, I'm going to have to slap her. And it's a really awkward level. How am I going to slap her without hitting her? Because she was on my right side. And of course, when you slap, it goes towards the left. Anyway, I did my bit, didn't mean to touch her at all. It was going to be a theatrical slap, and I did a little bit touch her. Mortified, mortified. And I could see my makeup looking very guilty among the people who were watching. And I thought, oh, yes, well, there's another lesson. Do not have a margarita at lunchtime. You can't control your every gesture. So, but I had another one. Let me just go back to alcohol. When I was doing cul-de-sac and I'm sitting next to Roman or somebody, Roman said to me, you're a better actress in the afternoon. And he said, isn't that interesting? He said, what? Is that because you've had a glass of wine? And I knew it was. I knew it was. Error level off. And I said, at that time, I was like, this is not a place to go. Get out of this place. And that was my first film and my first glass of wine on set. And anyway, the two combinations, I think, I've learned my lesson. Now, playtime is for the evening if you want to play.
So no alcohol now when you make films.
Well, I
Okay.
know, but not no. But when George Seaton was the director, he was so polite to us all, and we were all grown ups basically. The cast was in the plane, and it was getting hot. We were a bit bored, we're just looking for, a little bit of a hiccup. And but when I touched Ellen Hayes. She didn't get funny with me. She was always very polite. And I got through that. But hmm, you never know where your sins are going to come from.
Well, it's a very effective scene, regardless. So,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, Mephisto Waltz is a wonderful supernatural film, and your part was pretty significant in that movie. I think it's an underrated gem.
Good. I can't say that I enjoyed it particularly. Uh, the whole the magic and the circle and making the dog had to attack me. Well, the dog, which is called Vicky, this Labrador, black Labrador, had to come and attack me at my throat, and I was absolutely terrified that the dog would bite my face. So I learned then that there'd be several dogs, and it covered my neck with apple juice.
Oh.
So the dog would come up and go for my throat, but hopefully not be the one who had a claw. so so that happened, and this beautiful black Labrador jumped at me, and then it was replaced by another dog eventually for the growling and the carrying on, kept the baring of teeth. And I said, well, so there's another myth that I didn't know about, finding out how things can be tricked. And I was happy to be out of that particular moment. But it was interesting to do the film, except for the whole, the stuff, I don't know what you call that, magic stuff or
The supernatural.
supernatural. I really am absolutely not interested, but personally. But I enjoyed working on. I worked every day, and that was a discipline. And everybody was pretty nice to me. I didn't have any sense. I didn't know cinema. I only knew these interesting foreign films. Really, I didn't have a background in American film. When I was grateful that I was working, I didn't. I was always incredibly grateful because I knew how lucky I was. And if I could be good, I could maybe move my life to a little bit more what I wanted to do. The
You can
director, the director really annoyed me because he was always very flirtatious. He was very flirtatious, and I thought, oh, Christ, this is not a place to be flirtatious. And I remember at the end of the film, I threw a glass of whiskey at him.
Good job.
Yeah, he never made any move, but he was just flirtatious. And he just was not just with me, he was flirtatious as a person. And I remember thinking, just like, okay, enough, enough. And he knew that I was annoyed by it slightly, so he could just goad me.
Well, yeah, and you knew you could put the kibosh on it, which I think
I
is
didn't. I didn't. I was the last person to throw a glass of whiskey at anybody. But I remember doing it on another film too. I didn't know if the person who annoyed me. I didn't. I couldn't hit them. Anyway,
wow. Well, Judge Roy Bean, I wanted to specifically ask you. I know that was your first film with John Huston, but I wanted to ask about another actress I think is overrated, who is also in the film, Ava Gardner.
you think she's overrated?
Underrated.
Underrated. You just said
Yes.
overrated.
Oh, I apologize. No, highly underrated. I think she was
Yeah,
extraordinary.
I thought she was too.
Night of the Iguana, Barefoot Contessa, when you look at those performances, Magambo.
Yeah, she was extremely alluring and attractive. I remember looking at her in astonishment that it was her. I remember passing by her dressing room once, and she was standing on her head. I didn't get to speak to her hardly at all, but she was there. The idea that she was in the same environment was just amazing to me. Later on, some years later, when done quite a few movies, I went to an opening of a film, and both Mia Farrow and Eva Gardner arrived together, both ex-wives of Frank Sinatra. And they could not have been more different. It was just astonishing that these two women had inhabited his life, and presumably he loved both of them. And it was so different. Um, or I'm blanking on her name.
Ava Gardner?
Ava arrived she wore a very, very beautiful black tailored suit, fitted suit with a little sort of semi-skirt around the lower part of the skirt part, the jacket. And she had on a little black hat sort of forward, and then there was a little voilette, just with the voilette, with the um, looked absolutely amazing, absolute height of chic and elegance. And then Mia was wearing sort of a caftan. I said, wow,
So different. Wow.
that's so
Uh,
different.
I want to turn to Francois Truffaut's Day for Night, which was a game changer for you in terms of how you were viewed as an actress. Um, and specifically, your scenes later in the film with Jean-Pierre Lude, they're so touching. I think you are so incredible in those scenes. Would you speak a little bit about that film?
Well, it was a very important film for me because I admired his work and I'd seen pretty much at that point, pretty much as much as I could see. It was beyond my imagination that I was invited into his world because he did have a world. It was a different tone, and um, when I did it, I was nervous. He was very polite, very sweet, careful not to push me too hard, but he didn't. I had to speak French, and I didn't speak French at the time. I was very school French. I had to study a lot, and I couldn't join in the conversations of the group. They'd all pretty much known, they knew each other, and his group and his Susan Schiffman, who was his assistant and script. And I felt a bit out of it. I felt a bit like a loner in a very smart place where everybody was joking. I could hardly get my words out, let alone make tell a joke. It was absolutely thrilled when I could get any kind of humor into my days, or that I could join in a little bit, because when you do a film, you do want to be part of a group. You go in your own thing, but you want to be. I do anyway. I think most do. One of the things about being an actor which is difficult is you go off somewhere and you're usually alone completely in your room, hoping someone will take pity on you,
Oh,
ask you to come down to the bar. But you know that you realize that they're completely intimidated. And as much as they would like to, they tell you on the last day they were so wanted to invite you, but we didn't dare. And I thought, oh, please God, I don't know what to do now. I'm saying, well, feel like when I go on location, it happens, still happens like this. There you are in your room, and you know that they're all in the bar, the youngins. And as I'm getting older and older and older, I'm so less and less invited, probably. But I feel on some level I'm more invited because I got lots more to say or listen to. And it's a peculiar spot. I've heard other actresses tell me that they go through the similar things. That people are intimidated. They don't want to be forward and they don't want to be intrusive.
that must have been the case on Murder on the Orient Express because there were so many of you.
But no, it wasn't the case at all because I was staying in a place where I had my life.
Ah,
When I was in France and doing day for night, I was in Antibes. We were all in Antibes going to the studio and everything, and I shared a house with I can't remember her name. She played the script girl. I know. She was
oh,
wonderful. Oh,
yes,
oh my God, I can't believe it. But anyway, so we shared a house, so we were fine. But
nice.
I can't. Natalie By, Natalie
Natalie
By.
Bai, yes.
Yeah, that was one of her first films.
I mean, it's a masterpiece. There's a reason he won the Oscar for it. Um,
I was
Lemon,
away for that. I never saw that Oscar thing. I was doing something else. When I came back, they said that the Oscar, it won an Oscar. And I said,
uh,
amazing. I wasn't there for the opening or any of that stuff. Missed the whole thing. Went right over my head again. Just
oh,
wasn't conscious of all this thing that goes now so visible everywhere.
it's insane now. Um, Le Magnifique is a film with Belmondo, and dear God, that was a spoof before spoofs were popular. You guys,
Was it?
again, you were breaking ground there, and it is hilarious.
Yeah, it was a nice part. Belmondo was quite a good actor to work with. He was quite kind. He didn't have a lot of conversation, but he was kind of goofy in some ways. He liked to make jokes, and he was very bit off the wall. And but we got on it right. But I'm telling you, I don't know, telling things that interest you, but it was difficult for me because his girlfriend was there, and she was extremely jealous. took one look at me and she was like jealous from the right from the go. I hadn't spoken to him hardly yet. So it made it very difficult because she was always there sitting next to the camera, slightly intimidated. I'm well brought up, and I certainly don't go after people who've got their girlfriend there. And I had no intention of or no interest to go after him. But just the fact she was sitting there, she reminded me of Madame Lafarge in The Tale of Two Cities, who was knitting, chop off the head of the next person. Whereas for me, the actress who playing was in my mind, she was ready to chop my head off. And I had to do scenes when I had to kiss Belmondo.
Oh,
I thought, oh, off with her head, I thought.
I'm gonna have to rewatch those scenes now with that in mind.
Well, you wouldn't know, those you would have no sense of it. But there she was, wearing a very, very low cut dress and a very short, and looking, trying to look as absolutely sexual as possible. And Jean Paul loved it. I did ask the producer to have her removed. He said, I can't do that. Jean Paul likes her there. I said, okay, fine. Okay, we'll live with it. But you have to deal with that one. You have to be in a really intimate, caring relationship, and the person's partner is there. It's just not ideal because you don't want to hurt their feelings also.
Yeah, yeah, that
And
makes perfect sense.
people can get jealous. I know I got jealous in some of Michael's shootings. I remember being very jealous and watching him getting in bed with some other actress. Oh, I got to go. I'm going home. See you tonight, honey.
Well, and besides you, in addition to you, I should say, he worked with some of the best. He worked with Streisand, he worked with Jane Fonda,
Yeah,
but let's get back to Orient Express for a minute because for me, that was a blend of good old-fashioned movie star magic and a really riveting murder mystery. And I think it reshaped the genre because there were all these copycat films that came after it. I'm curious about being together with, I know there were some stage actors, there were screen actors. Did you guys get to interact?
at lunchtime. At
Oh,
lunchtime we did. But the rest of the time, the set was pretty quiet, and the director was very organized, and we were all very in our places. But lunchtime, it was a good time. Can I tell you a story about lunchtime?
please, I would love it.
Okay, well, Vanessa Redgrave, who was very political, um, she said to us they wanted to cut down the lunch hour. And she said, we cannot cut the lunch hour. It's taken us many, many years to get an hour for lunch. We have to fight for it. We have to keep it. But the point was that several of the actors were doing plays in the evening. Albert Finney, Ingrid Bergman, several were doing performances, leaving the set and going to do a theatre.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, I don't want to give up my hour. I really didn't want to. And I thought the others would be similar. I was one of the younger ones. So they called a meeting of the union. All the big guys, Sean Connery, Albert Finney, all the men standing behind in a rogue, and I was sitting down. Vanessa was fairly close by, and we start the meeting, and everybody says voting time. So I thought, not giving up my lunch hour. This is the best moment of the whole thing for me. So I got my arm up, and I got my arm like sort of here, and I sort of took it up, and then I got it like to about here, and then I lost my courage. And then I had to figure out how to get my arm down so that nobody would notice that I had acted. Nobody else voted. It was like maybe one person voted, like Vanessa. And I moved my arm around and sort of did a twirl and brought my arm down. I was just mortified with my own lack of standing. But I was terrified of would happen. I had never been to a union meeting in my life. And we lost we lost our lunch.
Oh,
And but it was interesting because Vanessa then, of course, she thought she had a what do you call it? Somebody supporting her. What do you call it? She had an ally.
yeah.
So she's the most extraordinary person. She's such a wonderful actress. An interesting to watch. I mean, I just watched what she did with scenes because I was sitting in the train. It's pretty much opposite her a lot of the time. But when was in her political mode, she was bright red in the face and not give up. And that moment was just awesome, awesome moment. And not Laurence Olivier, what was John Gielgud? Yes, he used to be slightly caustic at times about various people, and he would make, the odd remark because he understood that she was a real fighter and wanted to give in, but we had to give in. And I learned another lesson. Which side are you on? I thought, how can the union be telling us? But then I also empathized with the actors who had to go off and do performances in the evening.
Yeah.
I admired them, so it was a split thing, but I wavered. My behavior wavered.
Well, it can be intimidating.
Oh, very. And the males were very, Anthony Perkins, who else was there?
Jean-Pierre Cassel,
Not because there was a friend. I done a movie. I'd already worked with him, but they were the big guys: Sean Connery,
Martin
Albert Finney,
Balsam.
Martin Wilson. Yeah, they were quite male men.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I want to turn to the deep, and my question to you about the deep is those underwater scenes. That could not have been easy to do. I mean, I'm afraid underwater, so I can only imagine.
Well, I was afraid from the very beginning, but the wonderful teacher I had, Al Giddings, who was a famous diver, very experienced. He was the one who gave me my first lessons. So he came to my house and he said, we can start learning. And you had to have a pool, small pool. And he said, we can start learning in the pool. But he said, you have to know you could drown in a pool, even in a pool. And he said, you could drown in 3 feet of water.
Mm.
That had possibly happened. Anyway, from there, then he said, well, when we get to Bermuda, we will be going into the ocean and it's totally different. But he said, as soon as we get there, we'll go. So he said, we're going to go into the ocean. Well, now we're underwater on a cliff, and in front of us is just water, and you have the sense that it's it's the world, it's the sky, it's anything, it's bottomless, and you don't. And then he said, we're going to just step off it, step off the cliff into the what would be the abyss, or even though it was beautiful, to and it was like flying. I mean, that was very exciting. But after about 3 minutes, he said, "We've got to go deeper." And I'm going up, up, up. I couldn't face. Actually, I've never been underwater before, and no, we're going down. We're down. No, let's go up. And we discussed it with movements and gestures. And after about 45 minutes, he took me back up again. He said, well, that's how it's going to be. And you'll be down there probably for many of the times, maybe for 45 minutes. And everything will be timed and you will be on air and you will be women's breathing is a little different than men's breathing, and you have to take care of your people you're with, etc., etc. And I thought, how did I get myself into this? I could swim barely, but swimming and diving are completely different. And and off we went. We did it, and
Well,
I didn't swim since. I have not put my head underwater since. I literally haven't, and I forgot to pass the exam so that if I wanted to go diving, I could have the access to getting the diving equipment and that. But anyway, now I just look at films about this and I say, it's extraordinary to go diving. It is extraordinary. I'm so glad I did it. The
well,
water
and
was, it was in the early sort of 80 something when we started, but it went down to 58, 59 degrees
oh,
for the shoot. And that was freezing. I even had to wear under tights. I remember wearing tights for some long shots just to try and keep it a little bit warmer.
well, you guys broke ground. You know, I don't think it was until the abyss that they had underwater sequences like the deep. It's pretty
Right.
extraordinary.
And there was quite a lot of experimental camera things too. And actually, Al Giddings really saved my life because I had a moment when I was in the scene. I was had lost my equipment, and I had been pulled into by this beast. I can't remember the scene. I just know that I had no the mouthpiece was not with me, and I couldn't find it. I needed to put it back in my mouth, and I couldn't find it. The bubbles from Nick Nolte, who was underneath me at a deeper depth, holding onto my feet, completely obscured what I could see. I could see vaguely that Al Giddings carrying this red box in front of the camera, and he was treading water, and we were probably about 30 feet from the bottom, 25 feet from the bottom, and it was completely out of air. I said, I'm going to die here. I'm going to die here. And as I'm acting that, he didn't know whether I was acting or whether I was in real trouble. At some point, he realized, came in and offered me to buddy breathe with me. Because I was taking in water, I was absolutely just mentally hysterical. And I thought, I'm going to die here. And we were 90 feet down. And,
My God.
and, and he tried to calm me down. We buddy breathed up to the surface, and there was the boat. He said, have some peanut butter, settle your tummy. Peanut butter, settle my tummy. And there was the crackers. He said, I said, well, that's it. I'm done. I can't do it. Not only are you not done, tonight we're going to do a night dive. And I thought, oh, I can't do a night dive. Go in the water, black and dark water, and then he said, and we'll be inside another ship in the water, within the boat, in the thing. So he said, eat your peanut butter, and that'll take a moment. And I did, and that night we went deeper, and we went into this where there were in the large space inside there were fish who were sleeping. Nick was on his Desco hose, as was Robert Shaw. They had the Desco hose system because they had to speak to each other, and that was speak. I was just with the classic diving gear, waiting for it to walk over, and we did the bit that was laying, and then I apparently on the way up I kicked um, Nick or something, and he had a bit of problem with his diving equipment, and up I went to the boat, and I didn't realize what I'd done, and well, Nick was like a fish. He was incredibly agile, and he was very experienced with it.
Mm.
Robert Shaw was an absolute nightmare. He would think of a joke or whatever, or something. His eyes would, this is Jackie, say whatever he could, It was always joking with me, and he was completely unreliable. Unreliable. The problem is I had to follow him around, try and keep him out of trouble underwater. But we all survived it.
Yeah, thank God.
All survived it, and it went on and on and on. Then the water got really freezing, and then it was the reptile, the moray eel was not performing quite as it hoped
Oh,
into the thing. But Peter Yates was amazing, and he was with us all the way down. He wasn't the head of the diving team, and Waterman was the head, and Al Giddings, but Peter Yates came with us. He wore a bright yellow canary suit, and the script girl was also down there with me. She was the only female diving. The two, she always, and me and the boys. And what an experience I got
wow.
through too. Yeah, and I really pushed beyond my personality. I was really frightened a lot, and I said, I got to be one of the boys. I can't be have a feeble woman, piddling around complaining. So I was in there for the long haul, and I think they appreciated it. I wasn't, I
Wow.
was helpful.
Well, who is killing the great chefs of Europe had to have been a stark contrast because it's first of all it's a hilarious film way before its time showing a chef preparing food in something, and you were Golden Globe nominated. I personally think you also should have been Oscar nominated for that role. I think it's great.
Very kind. That wasn't the easy one. That was I don't know why I found it difficult. We had to keep changing location. It was always a resettling and traveling and the thing. And when you're in every day, trying to keep yourself ready and actively energetic and having to learn everything and be really completely 100% with the production is not easy.
Mm.
Much easier when you're in one place or two locations. I found it difficult. I got very tired. And, But George Segal was nice to work with, and the boys, the French, particularly the French actors, were fun. As soon as we got to Paris, and I met like a bunch of French actors, who were all great fun and such good sports. And I thought, oh, this is fun. Being in when we were in Germany, we were in Venice. We were in Venice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're in Venice as well. Oh my God. Yeah.
it was all good. It's incredible, but that one I didn't particularly enjoy because I found myself not. I didn't feel I was in full form.
Well, you proved you were deft at comedy, and you also in Rich and Famous is one of my favorite Jacqueline performances. Yeah, absolutely exquisite in that film. I wanted to ask you about working with Cukor. Um, and also, it was a strong year for women, 1981. And again, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, you were among the best.
Very good script.
Yeah.
It was a great script, and everybody was thrilled to be doing it. I found out later that George, not George, the writer, I name.
It escapes me too. No worries.
I heard, yeah, apparently I read later that he had felt that I wasn't the right person for the role. I mean, the fact that I got the help get the movie made didn't seem to matter to him, but he was. And then I got a letter later on where he took back what he'd been saying about me that I wasn't right, and he understood the work I was doing finally, and he thought I was right for it. But at one point, he didn't think I was being rough enough or something.
Oh,
But not exactly rough, but anyway, no, I hadn't seen the original film, and I didn't intend to see it, and I didn't know. I didn't know it was a film. I thought it was a play. I don't believe in comparing oneself. And Candy Bergen was just great and
yeah.
so fun, and I just loved working with her. And she was just game for anything and fun, and it was a bubble. She was like a champagne, and I was the sort of serious one. I was up against the situation of being an actress suddenly being part of the production. Not a happy moment.
Hmm.
It was very tough. And George was uh, he was okay with me, but he didn't like me very much. Didn't like that I was part of the production, and it was not. I mean, he wasn't used to that. He was used to actresses and not having any say. And I didn't push him around or anything, but I was there in the morning when he'd come in, and I sort of sometimes started the day up off before he sort of got there, and he was a remarkable energy. He was 80. I think he was about 83 at the time he did it. And when we were in New York, he took on the crowd. He was a ballsy guy, absolutely not frightened of anybody. But he had a side of him that was tough, very tough. And I had a few moments with him when it wasn't good. Um, but I like socially, we got on fine. Occasionally I would take him out to lunch, always with some gorgeous person there with me and divert. Um, and um, and I look back at it as a privilege, but it was a very unhappy time for me.
Hmm.
I felt I was being treated. It was what was it, 1980? 1980, and with very few actresses. Barbara Streisand was making movies. Very few people were involved in anyway, other than being an actor, and it still wasn't really. But afterwards, people said, "Well, don't you want to do it again?" I said, "No, do not. Certainly not with these people."
Hmm.
Maybe with people who were really my friends and were, working in a. No, I felt the system, I mean, I found the men very, very. The studio people were dismissive and not kind, and not. I mean, they were kind till we got it started, and then really it boiled down to, you're an actress, so don't sort of anything. And I felt there were some things that doing. I thought they looked like the characters looked too rich. But rich and famous. Um, I remember going into one set, and it was an outdoor arrangement of chairs on a beach, which was supposed to be my husband's. not my husband's, her husband's house. I remember thinking, well, they're not doing so well financially. How can they have all this outdoor furniture? It costs a fortune. And I remember making a suggestion that we remove some of the furniture and make it look a little bit like they were, a little bit of struggle, and not just having everything. And I got a very, very turned down face. And I said, oh, whoops, this is Hollywood.
Hmm.
Um, there's a little too much luxury, I felt at times. But that was nothing to do with the actors. And I thought George Cukor had a wonderful enthusiasm towards the words. He loved the script. He loved it. But he would whip us with words, to get us to go faster. And he would yell, faster, faster. And I thought, well, nobody is speaking. How will they get the plot if we talk? Anyway, that was what he wanted. And then he also had a thing about um, had a real thing about milking your words. And if any extras came on and tried to milk their line, oh, I'd try and warn them. Mr. Cooper likes to get on with it. Don't hang about. Don't try and extend your role. He'll kill you. You know, he will. So I saved a couple of lives there by just saying, because he'd say, if you paused, he hated pauses. Paused, he said, we're driving a truck through that one. And then he would get, it was like, nobody can hear you, faster, faster. And he was so energized. I had met him early on when I first came because he was coming to the school I was visiting on my first trip to America. He was coming to talks, and I remember some of the things he'd said about he was giving the students some, you know, tips. And I remembered certain things. So when I met him many years later, so it was I came to Hollywood in 67, 66, 67, and I didn't work with him until 1980.
Hmm.
I remembered what he'd said in those meetings, but he didn't really remember me. And I unfortunately started without realizing who he was and everything. I didn't know the extent of his of his workload and his reputation, as I didn't know anybody's. I didn't know about American filmmakers. I didn't know any of them. I didn't know stars hardly at all. We had one or two people because, as I said, we didn't have. I didn't go to the cinema or have television. Didn't
Wow.
have didn't have television until I was about 18.
Hmm. Well, Under the Volcano was your second film with John Huston, and you justly got a Globe nomination. Yvonne is this, it's a fascinating performance because you kind of had to, it blurs the line between reality and fantasy. And I thought you played it so well because it's not easy.
No, it wasn't easy because the script that I first got wasn't easy. It was too definitive. She's always in the eyes. This film is seen through the eyes of the consul, Albert Finney, and he's always drunk. So she can't be always too clear. She needs to be a little muzzy. I felt she needed to be muzzy. And I've also had the experience of living with an alcoholic. So I kind of knew awful lot about and where you can put yourself. If you come back to a situation where you know that nothing's going to change, you may dream that it will, but you know that it's going to change. So coming back to a marriage was a situation I felt I had really explored in my life, and I didn't feel some things were helpful. So there was a degree of her. She didn't really have anywhere to go. She'd
Hmm.
been away. I thought she came back. She had to accept him. She had to accept him as he was. And unfortunately, there'd been this infidelity with the other character of Anthony Andrews, as I understood, which of course was a bee in his bonnet. And but it was beautifully written, and I love the scene. There's a scene where we're in bed talking to each other, and we're talking about pronunciation of words or something, and Albert was on top of me, and we were. I love that scene. I'd never seen a scene like it, and I felt there was a lot of love in that relationship, but there was also a lot of tragedy which was woven in. It was and John Huston was not a big talker.
Mm.
two actors. He he tended to talk more with the men and the bosses, very macho set, lots of bosses, uh, famous journalists and so on. And I was a sort of fairly lone woman once again. And I never knew what he thought of me. I didn't know because I'd done the movie playing with Paul Newman, what's it called?
The Life and Times of
Life
Joy
and Time
Dean.
for Rare, and he'd been ill. And he'd actually said to Paul, that film, could you keep an eye on her, run lines with her? I'm not well. And so he basically stepped away from directing me. He was there on set, but he didn't really prepare me for him. And I never had a conversation after that, really, to clarify what if we were friendly, if we liked me. In fact, he cast me in as Yvonne. I was flattered, but it didn't mean that I'd also gone to stay with him in Mexico on the island, on the place where he lived, because I needed to talk about everything. And in the meantime, having had all these questions in my mind about my character, the script had a rewrite. And when I took the plane and then the boat over to where he was living, all the answers in the script were in the script. So we really had nothing to talk about other than be with him on that in that place, Las Caletas, spend the couple of days I spent there with him because the questions were answered in the rewrite. And we ended up talking a lot about alcoholism, and
Mm.
both of us knew a fair amount about it. Oh, this is extraordinary, extraordinary weekend or a day in the week. And I remember just we went swimming, and it was a little tiny beach, and we went swimming a little bit that morning, and then eventually in the afternoon I waddled off to the airport on the boat and home, and I put my back out. All this riding on the boat. The boat was bumping as we would go across back to the airport, and I didn't have a good minute. I remember lying in the passageway of the plane. I just couldn't move. And I remember the woman said, "Would you please sit in your seat?" I said, "I'm in agony." I had to get up and sit in the seat.
God. Oh,
That was so every story has another one. Oh my God, it's a crazy life.
well, let's talk about Claude Chabrol for a minute and La Cérémonie, um, which got you a César nomination. It's another incredible film. I want to ask you specifically about that intense ending. Could not have been easy to shoot, right?
Well, I was shocked. Which ending? I wasn't present for the bit with
That
the
that part, the part where you were all killed.
Oh, no, I was unpleasant, and I thought I was going to get shot. I was quite angry with the director because they were pointing this gun at me. And I said, this I don't want. Please, we're rehearsing, but okay, but I'm nervous about. I got shot on Casino Royale by mistake. I got shot. Luckily, a blank, so it didn't get cause that much damage. But I mean, this was now we're talking about having a real. And I didn't think he didn't appreciate really me suggesting that he kept the gun not facing me. So we were doing all this stuff. I had suggested the white outfit because I thought because she had help because she could wear white again. She couldn't wear white when she had help because she was a woman. She couldn't be washing all the time. She was a busy woman. She was here, there, and everything. And she had to look after the family and do the cooking until she got the lovely helper cook. So I thought we should wear white. It makes her really annoyingly vain. Vain wearing a white suit, dressed in your own house, getting dressed up for watching an opera on television. It's hilarious as an
Perfect.
idea. Absolutely hilarious. So, and also, of course, when it made a nice big red blob on when I got shot.
That's
Nice.
right.
Yeah.
I just want to discuss three more films because I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but Sleepy Time Gal is Francis. Incredible, complex, emotionally devastating performance. I'm curious as to what attracted you to want to play her, and by the way, the accent was spot on.
Thank you. I love Christopher Munch, the director. I saw a film he did called The Life and Times,
Ah,
which got a fair amount of attention, and it was a black and white film. It was about supposedly fictitious, I believe, journey of John the Beatle,
John Lennon.
John Lennon, and his manager going to Barcelona on some kind of a tryst. Anyway, I found it fascinating, and I thought, God, I'd like to be filmed in black and white like this, rather raw, simple. And I met with Chris, and he's just the most wonderful person. I just adore him on every level. He's deeply committed, very pure, wonderfully intelligent, and superior human. I think very human. And I said I would love to work with you. And then he asked me to do a small part in something that I didn't want to do. There's virtually nothing to do in it. And then he asked me to do this, the life. It was called Backward Looks, Far Corners, the original script. And I said, holy cow, this is really tough, really complex. How would I even begin to do this? And I wanted to do it. And we met. And it was a little bit over literate. It was quite a little bit slightly not really natural enough, I thought. And then he said, I want you to be American. And I said, oh, oh, oh God, I can't do that. I don't know how to do it. He said, well, you learn basically. You know. I thought, can I? I absolutely have no ear for the American. I don't know which accent is. I can't recognize people's where they come from, unless it's extremely broad. Anyway, I said, well, now this is a jam. And I accepted, said, okay. I started to study it. And for a year, I worked on it.
wow.
I had a treadmill. My mother was staying with me. She was living with me at that time. She was always sitting having her lunch at the time I wanted to get on the treadmill and do my hour of exercise and shrieking my dialogue at full pitch. I put the sound on. I had a little speaker thing and put the tape in there with my coach's accent, which didn't fit me at all. And so that would be playing, and I would be doing my lines along with it at high speed movement and loud. And she'd say, "Oh, darling, what are you doing?" And I'd say, "I'm working." Oh, oh, well, she would go on. She didn't speak like that, but that was the feeling for me that she was doing. She didn't speak like that. Um, and it went on for a year. And
Wow.
then I said, I think I've got the accent, but now I've lost the woman. The woman's gone. I was just gone. No femininity. I lost it. And the woman whose voice I was emulating to learn the accent had a rather very good accent, very dry, but I thought she's not an obviously feminine woman. The voice certainly didn't sound feminine. So the combination of those two things, I thought, well, this won't work. I cannot be this tough person. She's a tough character. She's difficult. She's got temper. She's unwieldy and stubborn. And on top of it, if she's unfeminine, I mean, how will anybody believe that she was this sort of siren of the night with playing all this music and stuff? So I had to divide myself into about 5 different jobs
Mm.
and work my way through them. What work my way through being a social worker, being a late night music, being interested in the black music, the different jobs that she had done in her life. She'd had 3 children, and one of course who she didn't give up. Well, that took me a long time to work through, and then I had to sort of steam in the accent, and then we had to add the cancer. And then there's a lot of layers, and it took me a year. And then and I cut to Chris. I was like, I think I could do it. He said, I want less, less, less. What does that mean? Less accent. So you know how well that's really difficult.
Yeah.
It's like you do an accent en passant as you're passing through, just like a whiff of it. A whiff. That was another moment of difficulty. but eventually I got.
Well, it's an incredible film, and I wish it was seen by more people.
It's on what's that incredible channel? There's a
Sundance.
no, no, no. It's on the
Oh, it's not
what's it called? The Sun, not the. It begins with a C. A very exclusive club of films.
Criterion.
Criterion. It's on Criterion.
Oh, good to know. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it was. I don't know if it's still there, but it was on Criterion. It was great. And working with Chris was great. You know, you see, here's an example of a person he's not interested in what most people are interested in. He's not a Hollywood person. He's a deeply human person, and he did everything was handmade. He did all the he did all the editing. He did everything. He was doing it all,
Mm,
and he was not literally sewing the things together, but it was really detailed filmmaking with a true passion, not about money or. And he would even be buying rushing to the supermarket to buy us lunch, some pre-made lunch that we get. We'd be sitting in the back of some car trying to change and eat our lunch. It was lovely. I loved all of that. I loved it. I just felt like this is me. This is me. I don't need all that crap. I
love it.
need
Well, your independent film work has been off the charts. The next film I want to discuss a little bit is Death in Love, another
oh, that's
inc
another weird one.
it's disturbing, but again, it's an astonishing performance, and yet you did yet another accent in it. She's so damaged.
Oh yeah, well the damage, the story of it is pretty awesome. But I just year was it? What year was Death in Love?
2008.
Right, I had just broken up with my big love. I was in a very very fragile state, and
Mm.
what I thought was love does not go away. And I found my way to her, which was played by another actress, Emma. What's this? Emma. She did a very good job with the young part when she was in the concentration camp and she was in love with a Nazi.
Yeah.
Everybody said, well, she didn't love him, she was just having sex with him so she could avoid being killed. I said, no, I don't think so. I think she did love him. I think she did love him. She didn't know she loved him in the time because she was too young to know what love was. But looking back throughout her life, her parents abandoned her. They chose each other rather than choosing her when there was a moment they could get out of what they were. And I felt she did. And I felt when he came back into New York to find her all these years later, she had two grown sons and a husband, which she probably did not love really.
Mm.
She was very damaged. I felt she loved him, this man. So when he came back, I believe that when she went to that hotel room, she was in love with him still. And I felt that way about my ex.
Oh.
I was in a really deep state of upset. And I don't think love goes away. It might be good, it might be for the wrong reasons. You don't know what's valid when you're in the middle of it. You don't know always. But I believe in love being very long lasting and it changes slightly sometimes. But I felt that was for me, that was why I wanted to play that scene.
Uh, it's an incredible scene, and it's a culmination. I felt the same way watching the film, that she certainly loved him, and that was where all the complication, all the nuance was.
But she couldn't admit it, nobody would have ever accepted it. She
No.
didn't admit it to herself. And the boys, I thought the other actors were so good. I'm trying to remember the one who played the piano. What's his
Oh,
name?
Josh Lucas.
Oh, he's so brilliant.
Oh, he was so good. Yeah,
Oh, he was
yeah,
so good.
yeah. And Lucas Haas was the other one.
Lucas Haas. No, Lucas Haas is the one I was so impressed with. No,
Ah,
George Lucas was good too, but Lucas Haas
mm,
blew me away. That character, what she'd done to him. Oh my God.
yeah, yeah.
I remember a scene. There's a scene when the neighbor opens the door and he's playing the piano and she's outside the front door and she turns and says to the neighbor, don't leave that up. I will kill you. And I remember thinking, wow, that's over the. Then I thought, no, it's not. It's her at this point. and I was gave me shudders to think that she was so deranged in a way that she would actually consider to say that to the neighbor in the car in the next door room, and the lady closes the door.
Yes.
And yeah,
A
that
word
was.
about that line I have to share with you because you brought it up. I actually wrote it down.
Did you?
When I heard that line, I called my husband into the room and I said, You've got to see this scene." And I showed him the scene, and he says, "Okay, I want to watch the whole film." So I had to start the movie all over again. And he's just based on that line. You say anything to make him stop playing, and I'll kill you.
Yeah, yeah,
Ah,
yeah. It was a tough moment. I love that. I just got my teeth into that. Yeah,
you meant it.
I meant it. Yeah, and I didn't know I meant it till I did it.
Yeah.
But she was on another level. And then, well,
Now,
anyway,
now we're at Lauren and Rose.
well, we are. We jumped. There's about 10 movies between.
I know, and I want to talk about
Yeah,
all of them, but I
yeah.
feel like
Go on.
I'm keeping you too long. And
No,
you
you're not. I'm here. You can talk. Ask me. I've got plenty of time.
Oh, good, good, good.
Yeah.
Because, well, I'm going to jump to Lauren and Rose and then go back a little bit because I want to speak about Russell Brown and this really, really great script and
Yes.
the great chemistry you have with Kelly Blotz. And
Mhm.
there's so much I want to ask you, but let me just we made each other better, didn't we? Was the line that leapt out to me, and I felt that you did as the film progressed. There's an extraordinary relationship there. There isn't any action in this film. What's incredible is you rivet us from beginning to end. Just it's basically a two-hander. Can you speak a little bit about the experience?
Well, it was a yeah. Well, we needed Paul,
Yes.
our lovely Paul Sand. He played the maître d' waiter, and he comes in at certain moments, brings a little levity into the situation. I thought with all the food stuff was very funny. It, in the original script, Russell had scenes of extraordinary dishes, which I said, "There's no way I will eat that. It's ghastly." I thought they were ghastly dishes, and it was all very nouveau, all God knows what. Anyway, I mean, he was really into this descriptions of all the food. And I said they were really I had difficult with those. I didn't want to say the words about them. And he had a lot of food ideas. Well, it gradually became tighter and more to simpler. And Paul Sand just brought delight on the set. He's just the most lovely person, and his contribution is very big in the film. I don't know whether he knows it. We tell him, but I don't know. He's just it's magic. He's in the way I walk into the door, and as I come in, he's my regular person who's seen me over the last 15 years, and just his hello and then taking me to the table, slightly grandiose, slightly, but enjoying every minute of it.
Yeah.
And Kelly, I found absolutely wonderful. He's I have never worked with such an actor who listens as well,
Hmm.
and never making you feel like you've got to hurry up because you're boring him to tears. Some people don't. Many people have no idea how to listen. You can see them preparing their spit. They're going to say,
Yeah.
or you finish joke, even tell a joke. They will not. They cannot be calm. Whereas Kelly gave me such confidence because I knew that once we also liked each other a lot, but I felt that he's an intelligent uh, actor and he's also a director. He's a good director. I've seen two of his films and Unusual Subjects, and I rate him highly. I really do. He helped me a lot. There were times when I thought I was droning on and
Hmm.
he's listening. And of course, I had to listen to him, but he had to do more than I did. But I'm actually considered to be a good listener. People tell me I'm a good listener.
She's fascinating, the character, and I overuse that word now with your performances, but she really is. She's a very, very interesting creation. I feel like she's very different from who you are. Um, and what I found most incredible about her was there was a sense of really wanting to um, continue to create, and I love people like that.
Well, she does say that when she says that that person would not have committed suicide.
Yeah.
She would only, want to live if she could still continue to create. Because the creator was part of her, and absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, probably a lot of people feel that way. They group when they don't get work anymore, they just dry up. They just can't see the thing in life. One needs to, it doesn't have to be necessarily acting, but one doesn't. If you are creative, you need to be creative in almost everything. I think I'm not always working, but I'm always working on being creative in something. I'm fiddling with my house. I'm making something to eat. I'm rearranging something. My eyes look rearranging things to get comfortable with something or to refresh it. Always, all the time, I'm doing.
No, I agree. I'm a writer, and I'm happiest, when I'm writing, whether it's a screenplay, a play. You know, I just it's what fuels me. And people talk about retirement. I would, I, I'd have to lose my eyesight, and then I would still write.
Well, now with all the equipment, you could do it on. You could speak it.
Yeah,
You could speak it into a machine.
that's right. Um, I wanted to bounce back for a moment to your film with Ozon,
Oh,
Lamont Double. Am I pronouncing that
l'amant
correctly?
double. Oui, l'amant double
Yeah. What a again with the word fascinating, but what an extraordinary film.
is an extraordinary. I didn't feel that he used me well, but I liked him. I was hoping for something much more meaty because I'd seen the film that he did with
Charlotte
Charlotte
Rampling?
Rampling, Under
Yeah.
the Sand, and I love her, and I loved her in that film. I just loved the way he filmed her. It was wonderful. I think she's wonderful, and I liked some other things he did, but I didn't feel he when we went to the costume fittings, he sort of gave me these clothes, which sort of like Mrs. Thatcher having taken a break. Mrs. Thatcher dressed when she's at home and no one is coming by, and she's definitely. And I thought, as I got the stuff on, I thought, oh, well, this is surprising, having thinking of Charlotte Rampling looks so ravish. I thought, well, okay, well, I can make this. This is a character. She's very disagreeable. Wonder why he wants me for this part. Oh, well, she's disagreeable. Yeah, she's living in his house. And so yeah, I thought, well, okay, that's what he wants. And then, you want to be. I was disappointed that he didn't see me in a different way.
Well,
In
I
fact,
still I feel like though you make a buffet out of, just a few pieces of tomato and lettuce. You did it with backstabbing for beginners too, where I couldn't believe how little I was so disappointed where,
I was disappointed too.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's like 45 minutes into the film, you're not there anymore. And, I was so fascinated with your role, but you still made
okay.
something of it.
Well, thank you. But yes, but those were disappointments. And the director's then you're thinking, why don't he see? Why doesn't he see if he just give me a little, And I found him to be a very cold person. It was a fairly interesting story. I've forgotten about those films because you do get a bit disappointed. But then when we went for the we went to Cannes and we all got dressed up. I mean, I remember when the director looked at me, it was like, oh, my goodness, she looks nice. He hadn't seen me looking nice really. He saw me looking dumpy and disagreeable. And I felt like saying, so much for that. Not that I wanted to be. I don't care about being glamorous. I just wanted to be. Just I want the. You want the soul and the stuff to come out, be filmed well. That's why I was so madly keen on Ingmar Bergman's work. I mean, what he brought out of those women was so deeply magnifique.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. Jacqueline, can I ask you, why have you never written your memoirs?
I don't want to. I don't want to be alone sitting there doing it. I've done it so many bits. I'm telling you much too much. I mean, this is going to be close to my memoir at this point. um, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that I think of my private life as being the most interesting part, but I also don't like. people discussing all their privacy. And I can't. I have all lots of diaries, like, but I write in mysterious ways that I can't remember what I wrote, and I also can't fathom because I want to be very discreet always.
Mm.
So I write things like in sort of semi-code, and I can't remember what it means. But I think my diaries will not serve, will not serve. But just to, you need them for your tax reasons. You need to have it, where you've been, have you traveled, films that you see, what theaters, what people, parties, and so on. I write very undetailed stuff. Hardly, most of the people are dead. Virtually everybody's dead. This is very depressing. I have a wall in my kitchen, which I used to have. It's a long passage. You can stick pins in it. And I had it all covered with photos. Lots of people I've worked with. And I had a friend, and I said, "Oh, Charlie, yes, I want you on my wall. Why aren't you here?" So I don't want to be on your wall. Why? He said, "Everyone's dead." I said, "Really? Are they dead?" I look. I said, "Wow, but they feel alive to me." Anyway, I took it all down. He never gave me a photo.
Oh,
And then, well, and then of course, even more dead now. I mean, virtually all the directors I've ever worked with, I think, almost not Chris and not Russell, but a lot of them are dead.
the big names. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Uh,
the whole cast of Airport. I have a picture of the whole crew. All of this, they're all gone.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think every one of them. So many of them left early, like Gene Seberg, and it's really wow. Well, but you're still here, and that's what matters. And what are you? Do you have anything that you're working on next that we can know
Nothing that
about?
I'm talking about a couple of things. I don't know if I'll do it in the end. I'm talking about a French director film of something quite modern. But I'm not sure I'm not too old for it. I'm not sure. He said, "You're not too old for it." I said, "I feel like I might be a bit too old for it." But the times have changed. Women are no longer, tied, thrown out at 30. They you can last a bit longer.
Well, and honestly, your career is nothing short of extraordinary. It
No,
really is.
I don't have a good judgment on it. I feel often that I'm just starting. I
Well,
mean, I'm just so much more I'm so much more in touch with my I've always been truthful. I've always been a truthful person. I don't feel the need to hide, but but I'm also well brought up, which could be a bit of an impediment where you want it really just, you know. But if you let me, if I was, for example, freewheeling in terms of what I like playing, I like doing English Cockney. I could just go for hours in there, and I just could have so much fun. I also have another character, an Italian character, which I used to do for my mother and get her. She'd just be laughing all the time. I would just walk around the house doing it Italian. And I
is
did a little
this
part of it. Yeah, did you ever see the movie I did with
last film festival?
last film festival?
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, you're hilarious in that.
Yeah.
You
So,
reminded me of my relatives, just so you know I'm Italian.
so
So
really, I love Italian accents. I love it. So funny, and you can really, really stretch it. Not that she got that opportunity, but I said, because when Linda wanted me to do that, I said, can't just do it. It just doesn't. She says, no interest to me. No, do it. Got to do something with it. I said, can I be Italian? Yes. I said, can I goof it up a bit? She said, well, let's see what you want to do. I said, I don't know until we get there. But it was fun. But the character, I just did. But my English working class character is much funny. She's a hoot. I love doing it. I just love it because it just nothing stops me. I mean, it just flows. And I've got all these friends. Funny thing, I've got Maureen, and we live in, we go down the block. We go to the movies. We go to the fish and chips, and we all hang about together. It's lovely. And I could just go on like this, and I love it. Just love it. I'll make myself laugh. I think they're all laughing like crazy. They can't believe it. They said, "Do you know what were you like as a child?" I said, "Oh, it's really grand. It was really grand indeed." That wasn't grand, but no, it's fun. So I'd love to do that. and I could just make it up stuff. It just flows out of me.
I will leave you with two questions. The first is I just want to know if there are any misconceptions about you that you'd like to once and for all clear up.
Oh, there probably are. There probably are. God knows. I have misconceptions. Well, people say, "Oh, Jacqueline Bisset, she's classy, isn't she?" I say, "Fuck that. I'm not classy. I'm just, I'm just English. I'm not English. I'm English. No, I'm not. I'm partly French. Oh, je ne sais pas. I don't know." But when they say, "Oh, she's classy," oh, please. That's very passé to be classy. Not really, but somewhat.
I know what you mean. And I think the last question I want to ask you is, has there been, what would you say has been the most creative role or project that you've worked on? The one that's, or the one or two that have fulfilled you the most?
The two independents, the Sleepy Time Gal and Lauren and Rose.
Oh,
And I after that would be Rich and Famous, which I was involved in the production. Those are the most were the roles of the best.
okay, certainly three of your best performances, so I understand that. I want
Oh,
to say,
wait, there's another one called Forbidden. Forbidden is a wonderful film. Did
oh,
you ever
the
see
you
that?
won the ACE Award for that.
I think I did. Oh, no, I was
Yes.
nominated. I didn't win it. No,
Oh,
but
okay.
it's a really good project. That
Yes,
one was
with
really.
Jürgen Prochnow, right?
God, you knows everything. Okay, so Inchon came to me at a time when I was my career was was considered fairly hot. And I said, no, I didn't want to do it. And then went away, and then they kept coming back to me. And I said, there was a lot of money. And I said, I can't do this movie. I can't do it. I just can't. And then I thought about it, and I said, you want to find your own route. And I thought, if I do this movie, then I can maybe I can then move into something before it's famous. I can maybe find some scripts and maybe take the time to actually, what I thought, it's obscene to turn down this money. Who am I kidding myself? I took the money, did the film. It was awful, and I had a good time doing it. I loved being in Korea. I loved Korea, and I enjoyed the whole thing. The little girls I was working with, the Korean children. Cut. Years later, I hadn't followed it. It didn't come out anymore. Somebody said to me, "Oh, I was in Cannes, and I saw Incheon." I said, "You saw it? I mean, how did you see it? Was it playing?" He said, "Oh, it was the best." I was like, "It's the worst film." They had gone back and added all kinds of scenes to it other than the director. And he said, "What are you saying?" I said, "What are you saying that Inchon was the best?" He said, "No, not the film, the party."
Oh no.
I said, "Oh, it's so funny to me that they gave a party for it. The worst film." And it was, anyway,
It
I had
it
a good time doing it. It was not a good film. And Laurence Olivier, who was genius, was not good in it. He really was not good. And he was I didn't work on the same time, but he was there. I met him later. I met him at a dinner in Paris. He was charming, but he was not good in the film. It was a bad film. All the actors around me were fine, but the person who produced it was part of the
the
what were they
Moonies,
called? The
right?
Moonies. Yes, but
Yeah.
that was all denied completely. They said absolutely nothing to do with the Moonies. The fact that all the crowds were made were Moonies, I thought, this is really in this. The fact they offered us a lot of money, it was all bizarre. And anyway,
You have a good scene near the end with Ben Gazzara, though. It's a very powerful
oh, you've
scene.
seen it? You've seen it?
Yes.
Oh my God. Okay, well,
Yes.
anyway, so one when I've lost my story now. I've forgotten the story I was going to tell. Whatever it was. Anyway, the man, sir, whoever ran the Moonies, decided afterwards he wanted to add a lot of war scenes. And he went back and he shot a lot of stuff with weapons and war, and then to make it a bigger war movie. And I don't know what was Terrence Young's stuff and what was, because I only saw it once. But it was an embarrassment because they said it's one of the worst movies it's ever been made and one of the most expensive. And at the time, I think it was like it cost around 30 million,
Yeah.
which was enormous, enormous, enormous. Anyway, I don't know the story, but I just when I heard that story about it, it was the best. Oh, I was like ready to take claim and say I was in that. They're all phonies underneath.
Well, even like around that same time when Time Ran Out was a film I think that
Oh,
disaster movie fans were really looking forward to because the Towering Inferno was so great and the Beside Adventure was so great.
yeah, yeah.
And they must have run out of money for the special effects because they were
Oh my
terrible.
God! It looked like the chicken a la supreme. What's it call it? The lava looked like the chicken soup is coming down the hill. I mean, oh, it was awful, an embarrassment. But I like the boss. I liked Erwin Winkler, not Erwin Winkler.
Uh, Alan,
Alan. Well, yeah, Irving Allen.
yeah.
He was a character. He was nice. You know.
Yeah, and again, you had some good scenes with Paul Newman. So, you know,
Well, you're very kind, but don't, mustn't give me too much credit for everything. I mean, I did occasionally end up in bad movies. Occasionally, not many. I always
e
had a good time. I did work for myself, you know.
even when the movie wasn't that great, like the first time is a good
Oh,
example of
not
a
good. Not
no,
good. No.
well,
No.
bad acting, no offense to the boys, but they're terrible. And the script wasn't great. But again, you managed to deliver a good performance in a not so great film. So,
Balance. Yeah, well, they can. Some of these films are. I mean, yeah. Anyway, it was
you've
a
never been bad
sophisticated.
in anything. Let's put it that way.
I have been bad in some things. I can't. I don't claim them, but I don't. I'm not always good. When it's not as when the process of learning how to do this and getting rid of your fears and being brave, it's an amazing feeling. But as you grow older, your feelings come up much more easily than you'd have to dig for them as much. I have to really hold back stuff because I can get very moved by things that are should be treated more averagely. Because
Mm.
one can't be overly emotional. I think it puts the audience off completely when actors are sort of overdoing it, and you've got to keep it. Sometimes hold something back. In Forbidden with Jürgen Prochnow, I remember certain scenes when he was getting very emotional, and I thought, no, don't be so emotional.
Mm.
It makes it very hard to. I mean, it was a very tough story. I understood, but sometimes actors need to be held. Just back off. Just hold something for yourself still.
Yeah.
The audience get uncomfortable.
And let the audience fill in the blank. That's one of the wonderful
Exactly.
things, yeah, about Sleepy Time Gal. He the way he cut that film together, we bring ourselves to it and we can fill in the blanks.
And my son was wonderful in that. Nick
Yeah.
Stahl
Nick Stahl. Oh my God.
was wonderful, and it just a lovely boy. Oh my God, he was so lovely.
Yeah. And that was before In the Bedroom for him. So that was,
Was it?
yeah. Yeah, it was because that was in 2000 and In the Bedroom was 2001 or 2, I believe.
But we did ours. We did ours over 3 years.
Oh, okay.
We each bit with the money. We had to wait, and then we started in California. We went to New York. We were in different places, and gradually put it together. And it was 3 years. It was 3 years over 3 years, which worked for me for my character. I
Wow.
was able to get cleaned up, get kind of lousy looking, and then look good, and then look whatever I had to do. I had time to do it with food, without food.
I'm a cinephile, and I actually it was a joy to revisit your films because I realized how important you are to cinema. Um, and no, it's true. And I wanna say something, and I feel like all these tributes that are given, there's so many now, and they usually go to men still. Uh, the few times they go to women, it's the same names you hear over and over again. And I don't. understand why your contributions to cinema aren't as heralded as they should be. I just want to say you don't need to react to that. I just want to say it for the record. You are most welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us today. I really appreciate it.